Hey, it's Tony again, and I just wanted to do an introduction, so to speak, of myself before I get rolling with YouTube content, which right now I'm kind of doing things on the fly, and eventually I will be doing a little bit of editing. I will give you guys just some heads up right now. I don't know much about editing. I don't know much about any of that stuff. Um, and a lot of my videos are going to be very, very basic. And that's okay. I will be doing some video capture stuff. Newer consoles, older consoles, whatever. Whatever I feel like doing. And possibly I'll take requests eventually. So this video, what I wanted to do was before I start rolling out content and um, making videos on a regular basis, I wanted to introduce myself. I first of all, I've been watching YouTube for a very long time. Um, Way back in 2006. Excuse me. When it first came out, I can remember when it first came out. I remember when Facebook started becoming very popular, and you actually had to have like a certain school email address in order to become part of Facebook. It was the cool thing. Uh, some of my friends were at Mizzou campus, and they had a Mizzou email. I did not, and I had to wait. I had to wait a few months. Well, now anybody can get Facebook. But anyway, I digress. I have been a huge fan of YouTube content, uh, YouTube channels. AVGN is probably the one. James Rolfe is probably the one that I watched the longest. Pat the NES Punk. He's probably a close second. I really love the Game Chasers. I've watched them probably since they were rolling with season one. And I love their content. Yeah, they want to find games, but it's more than that. It's about relationships, hanging out with buddies, and actually going out and finding the games. That's what I like about them. There's numerous channels I love too. GameSack, they're a big one. 8-Bit Eric, Grimsy42, all of those guys in the retro scene. Um, just to name a few, there's numerous other ones too. But I've really been wanting to start a channel now for the past year and a half, and I really don't know that much about this stuff. I'm just gonna try it, and it's gonna be a lot of trial and error. It's gonna hopefully get better as I learn more about editing and software and all that stuff. So at first it's going to be very Ed Wood-ish. If you don't know who he is, look it up. But um, but it's all coming from here, um, which what counts, right? But anyway, that's kind of why I wanted to start a YouTube channel. It's because I was inspired by others. And I'm also huge into retro video games, and I want to share my passion with others. Um, I consider myself to be a pretty big collector. I'm not like an elitist or anything. Like, I don't have anything ultra rare. But I have been collecting now, oh, probably I would consider hardcore for the past, I probably started really buying very heavily. I've been buying off and on all my life. Probably 2010. So about the past 6 years, I've been buying, reselling, collecting, adding to my collection, that kind of thing. And I have been collecting all my life. Um, I have started, and I'll give a little bit of history of my gaming history, if you will. But I started gaming very very young. My parents, they had an Atari 2600 before we had an NES, and they had it. They played the living crap out of it, and it was kind of a hand me down to my brother and myself. And literally, I played that thing until it wore out. We also had I have vague memories of a 5200, but I'm pretty sure that thing, the controllers didn't work, and we did not get it to work as well, as it's notoriously known for not working very well. But the Atari 2600 introduced me to video games. The Atari 2600, it's what made me fall in love with games. Probably some of my all-time favorite games on a system: Combat, Combat. Okay, I'm AVGN and Pat the NES Punk. I love Air Sea Battle. I love all the classics: Galaxian, Centipede, Millipede, Adventure, you name it, even Pac-Man. Miss Pac-Man is a much better game. Donkey Kong, all those games I had. Superman, I even played Superman. Indiana Jones, those games, I loved them. And I even I played ET as a kid. Couldn't figure it out. But yeah, I played that, and I literally played right before school. I was allowed to play right before school because we got up a little bit earlier, and I played after school. And I knew that the NES was out. Okay, I knew that the Nintendo was out, and my buddies, my friends, they had it. I knew they had it because I'd been over their house and I played it. Okay, played it. So we ended up getting an NES as well. Got it at a pawn shop, dirt cheap. Um, all the classics, the Mario's, the Zeldas. Rampage was a big one, I remember. Um, and I'll go through that too. Um, I'll go through some game room tour stuff and show you my collection and some of the games I played as a kid. And I still own some of the games that I played as a kid too. And I'll get to that eventually. I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. But Bermuda Triangle, that was one. Uh, no, Cobra Triangle. Sorry, Cobra Triangle. I rented that game all the time, even though it was really hard. Really hard. But anyway, so we got that. Then in '92, I believe, it was a year after the NES was released. Super NES was released, sorry. We got a Super Nintendo for Christmas. Okay, that changed my life. That uh, was a huge moment for myself and my brother. And we got Super Mario World. My mom and dad rented Super Mario Kart. So it might have actually been '93. When did Mario Kart come out? I cannot remember the exact Christmas we got it, but I do remember we rented Mario Kart. Mom and Dad also rented Pilot Wings for us, and we played that thing. We played it and played it, and I still own that very system to this day, and I actually still play it. The only reason I play it is because I ended up doing the mod where you take the chips out in the system and you can play Super Famicom games. And I have a few Super Famicom games. And so I do have some nicer looking Super Nintendos than the one I have. but I had that one hooked up just for that reason. Um, and then, we played that, loved it. One game that I really latched on to early on was Zelda, Link to the Past. I have very vivid memories of renting that game and just falling in love with it, and then wanting to go on adventures, wanting to um, basically explore Hyrule and defeat Ganon and rescue the Princess Zelda. I did not beat that game until much later when I became a little bit more mature, but I remember playing it and just absolutely loving it. Super Mario World 2. Oh man, snow days, that was the game. And I still do that to this day because I'm a teacher, and yes, sometimes we get snow days, and I play Super Mario World on snow days. It's just kind of a tradition. At least the first snow day of the year, if we have any here in Missouri. So got the Super Nintendo, fell in love with it, and then I believe it was the next Christmas. I wanted my own system because everything that we had, I had to share with my brother, which wasn't a problem. But I wanted my own system. I started just like any kid from that era, falling in love with Sonic the Hedgehog. Okay, my friends, my buddies, they had a Sega Genesis, and I played Sonic the Hedgehog 1, and I loved it. And that's all I talked to my mom and dad about. Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog. And ended up getting the next Christmas, I got a Sega Genesis Model 2, and I still own it. I still have it to this day, with Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Sonic the Hedgehog 2, that game, it's one of those game changers for me. Okay, and it's right up there in my opinion with Super Mario World, and it was my very first system that I could say it's mine, my own, and um, I fell in love with the Sega. I rented games left and right for it, and I still played Super Nintendo. Okay, and I played Legend of Zelda, and I was like, yeah, this is a great game. I love it. Okay, it's a good game. But I wanted to explore RPGs. I wanted to explore um, RPGs, and the Super Nintendo is a great start for any RPG fan. I rented Final Fantasy II, which is Final Fantasy IV, really, and I rented Final Fantasy III, which is Final Fantasy VI, and those were some of my first RPG experiences. Um, Final Fantasy II. I'm just going to call it 2. Final Fantasy II. I I beat that game. I loved it. I was like, man, this is great. So I started researching a little bit and then started reading in the gaming magazines. I was subscribed to EGM, Electronic Gaming Monthly, and I started looking for the RPGs that were going to be coming out. I played through 6. 6 was phenomenal. And lo and behold, probably my favorite game of all time, Chrono Trigger. I discovered that. And my cousin owned it. My cousin actually owned a bunch of RPGs, and he was a huge RPG fan. He actually introduced me to Pokemon too, and I was one of the first kids in my school to bring Pokemon to school, literally. Okay, because of my cousin. He was a big influence on me. He introduced me to great titles such as Chrono Trigger, Earthbound, Harvest Moon. Both the Breath of Fire games, they're phenomenal. Mario RPG, and I discovered Soul Blazer on my own. ActRaiser 1, 2 is okay. I played that later, but he showed me ActRaiser 1. He also kind of got me into Dragon Ball Z. That's another topic altogether, but he got me into the anime-ish stuff. But he also got me into Pokemon. Um, so I got a Game Boy, started playing Pokemon, and became obsessed with Pokemon for a while. I still love Gen 1 stuff. The original 151 Pokemon are awesome. I like Gold and Silver too. And I actually even played through X and Y uh, 2 springs ago. Yeah. And I enjoyed it because that was the first Pokemon game I played through since Gold and Silver, and Crystal. But anyway, he got me into that and RPGs. Still a big fan of Zelda, Mario, Metroid, you name it. Adventure games. Um, and we also during this time, I got a Game Gear, I got a Game Boy Color, and another big moment, big Christmas, was we got PlayStation 1. PlayStation 1 was another turning point, too. Um, and PlayStation 1 was awesome. Ridge Racer. Ridge Racer! That was a release title. It came with the console. And Ridge Racer, I can still sit down and play that game. It's great. I think I own all the games in the series. Could be mistaken, but it's a great series too. Tekken, we played Tekken 1. Um, Jumping Jack Flash was another big title that we loved, an early title. Battle Arena Toshinden. The game's terrible, but we loved it. Mondo was awesome. I think it's that old guy. Um, and we fell in love with the PlayStation. Also during this time, I started playing Final Fantasy VII. That was like the next step in my progression of being an RPG fan. Okay, started to experience Final Fantasy 2, 3, Chrono Trigger, which Chrono Trigger is my #1 game of all time, and then Final Fantasy 7. 7, it's up there with um, gameplay hours, most gameplay hours I've ever spent. It's probably up there with Skyrim, upwards to 200 to 300 hours. I don't know, something like that. Multiple playthroughs, and I just played through it over the winter when it came out on PlayStation 4. It was re-released. Uh, excuse me, and I started discovering other RPGs. Suikoden. Suikoden 2 came out. I bought that in stores, and I still have that copy. Grand Stream Saga, Final Fantasy Tactics, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9. Other RPGs, I just can't think off the top of my head. I also enjoyed like Castlevania Symphony of the Night. That was a great game. I remember spending a lot of time and hours on that game. I also enjoyed like fighters like Soul Blade, Tekken 2, Tekken 3. I played, the mainstream games too, Crash Bandicoot, Tomb Raider, all that stuff. Then the next, fast forward a Christmas later, my parents were very, very good to us. I will say that. They were very, very gracious and just very willing to try to give us what we wanted for Christmas every year. And we were blessed. I was blessed. And I still own a lot of, actually, I probably own the majority of the systems that they gave us for Christmas. I think the only one I traded off is a Game Gear, which I regret. Yeah, it's a Game Gear, but it's a Game Gear I got for Christmas. So I kind of hold these things dear to me. But we got a 64, N64 the next year, Nintendo 64. And the two games I got Killer Instinct Gold, which it's kind of odd because, yeah, I love fighting games, but I'm no good at them, and I'm really terrible at Killer Instinct Okay, and my brother got Hang Time, NBA Hang Time. And the funny thing is, those games cost like $80 at the time. I can't believe I spent $80 on one game back then. We would borrow games like Turok, um, Mario 64, Pilot Wings from other friends and stuff, and we would rent them too when they were available. But ended up just like anybody else, everybody else around that era. GoldenEye was huge. Smash Brothers was huge. Perfect Dark was huge. Ocarina of Time. My brother got it. He pre-ordered it. He got the gold edition and the collector's edition case, which I do not have, and I wish I had. But the N64 was a little bit lacking on RPGs, and I kind of noticed that. So yeah, it was a good party system. It was good to play like Mario Kart on. It was good to play Smash on, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark. But I kind of, I played Ocarina of Time, beat it. Majora's Mask, I beat it. Not a big fan of Majora's Mask, by the way. It's okay. Um, but anyway, that was our last system that we got officially for Christmas. Parents said, we're not going to buy you guys any more game systems. We'll give you money, but we're not going to buy you a game system to unopen at Christmas time. Okay, so that became kind of the era where we kind of fended for ourselves and got what we wanted. And I did not have a Sega Saturn back in the day. My buddy did. I played it at his house all the time. Sega Saturn is underrated. It has some great sports titles on it, some good racers, and some good RPGs, which are really, really expensive. Also, Sega CD, we did not have back in the day, but once again, a friend had it and we played it. Jaguar, Atari Jaguar, oddly enough, a friend of ours had it too, and we played it out of curiosity, and we thought it was pretty funky. Okay, which it is. I love it, and I'm actually on the lookout for an Atari Jaguar. It's one of my games, one of my systems I'm looking for cheap-ish. I actually have controller and hookups and a couple games for it. I'm just kind of looking for the console. But anyway, after that Christmas, we kind of fended for ourselves. My brother, he was a little bit older than myself. He was able to get a job before I was, so he had more money. I do remember 9999. Okay, that was a huge date in gaming history. Sega Dreamcast came out. And I'm kind of skipping around some games, some important stuff. But for sake of time, I remember 9999 coming in the Sega Dreamcast. My brother stayed overnight with one of his buddies. They camped out in front of it was Circuit City. Okay, and he pre-ordered it and all that stuff. And he got it. And he skipped school that day. He was actually a senior. And I got to play it after school. Soul Calibur. Soul Calibur blew my mind. Soul Calibur is I don't claim to be very good at very many games, like competitively, but that's one of them. Soul Calibur is my game. Soul Calibur 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is terrible. But I'm very good at Soul Calibur. It's probably the only fighting game I can pretty much go toe-to-toe with anybody. So Dreamcast came out. We loved it. Sonic Adventure was great. I played Skies of Arcadia on there. I rented it. It was an awesome RPG. That's a great RPG. I have it on the Cube now. I don't have it on the Cast. There were a few other good RPGs on there. Oh, snap. Evolution. There was Evolution 1 and 2. I played Evolution 2. I own it. I actually have it sealed now. And one opened. Other RPGs, there's Time Stalker. It was kind of clunky. But games on that, I played Toy Commander. That was a great party game, great game in general. Choo Choo Rocket. That's a lot of fun. That's still a good game to play with a lot of, group of friends. Crazy Taxi was good. SSX was good. Those titles. And my brother, he also ended up getting a PlayStation 2. And I kind of went through a phase where I kind of stopped playing games for a while. And I started getting into high school. And I started becoming a little bit more interested in other things like girls and sports and jobs and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of distanced myself. Actually, the funny thing is, I bought like a bunch of Nintendo games, like NES games, from a buddy of mine for dirt cheap, and I wasn't even playing games. So it's like, even if I was trying to get away from it, there was no way I was going to get away from it. But if I would have known what I know now back then, I would have bought as many Nintendo games as possible. This would have been the early thousands, okay? But I kind of got out of it and kind of put all my stuff away, packed it away. I believe I left my Sega out because I played Sonic 2 some here and there. Real quick, Sega Genesis, Shining Force 2. That game was another one of my games that I played the living crap out of. That game is phenomenal. Anyway, so I kind of went through a phase where wrestling, wrestling was my sport, not pro wrestling, but like high school folk style wrestling. I kind of became obsessed with that, and that was kind of my drive, my focus. But I also started working at a grocery store here in town and started saving my money up a little bit, and I bought a PlayStation 2. Really, the only reason I bought a PlayStation 2 was for the DVD player. See, at the time, DVD players were still fairly expensive, and the PlayStation 2 was a very good option, especially if you were into games. And I kind of got back into games at that time. Some RPGs, Dark Cloud 2, Final Fantasy X. I played that through. That was a hard one for me to play through because I really didn't have a whole lot of time. I had to play it late at night after I got off work. I also played 10-2, which in my opinion, it does get a lot of flack. It's not as good as 10. I'm not a huge 10 fan, by the way. But it's not as bad as people say, in my opinion. Also, I played Soul Calibur 2. That was my game on PlayStation 2. Okay, Soul Calibur 2, and we'd have parties all the time. Okay, and we'd have tournaments, Soul Calibur 2 tournaments, all the time. Okay, great game. PlayStation 2 Soul Calibur 2 is probably my best version. Okay, yeah, it has Heihachi, but so what? I really can't think of any other standout titles that I played. I did play the Lord of the Ring games when they came out, the Two Towers and Return of the King. Those were pretty good movie tie-in games for, licensed games, that kind of thing. And I didn't really collect. Wasn't really trying to build a collection back then. I just wanted to play games, just like, a normal teenage boy, what they do, and collect movies. I probably had more movies than games, and I kept my PlayStation 2, and Xbox came out. I had no interest in Xbox at all. And I'm really not a Microsoft guy. I'm not trying to knock anybody. I'm just not a big fan of Xbox 360, or Xbox One. I want to get an Xbox One eventually, just to have in the collection, that kind of thing. But I'm still going through this phase. I actually ended up getting a GameCube for dirt cheap at It was Electronic Boutique, which eventually would have become a GameStop. Okay, I think GameStop absorbed them, if I'm not mistaken. But I ended up getting a GameCube. Got Mario Sunshine. I got Mario Kart, Double Dash, uh, Luigi's Mansion, which it's okay. But a couple I kind of was getting back into RPGs a little bit, and actually, it was funny enough. Actually, it was through wrestling. Okay, a buddy of mine that I wrestled with, he brought his Game Boy Advance to tournaments, and he brought Fire Emblem, uh, the one that was actually released on the Game Boy Advance, and I fell in love with Fire Emblem. I actually beat it. It took me a week. I told him to bring it to the next tournament, and it took me like from tournament to beat it. And I'd played in between rounds, in between wrestling, and I really wasn't wrestling that well, so my mind was just kind of like, I'll play Fire Emblem. And anyway, back to the cube. I ended up actually getting the Fire Emblem game for GameCube. It's not Radiant Dawn. That's the Wii. But the GameCube Fire Emblem game. The name eludes me, but I ended up getting that, and trying to get back into RPGs a little bit. I rented Tales of Symphonia, Skies of Arcadia, Legends, that kind of thing. I started playing a little bit more. Melee, I played Melee a lot. I loved Melee, but still kind of in my snobby video games are for nerds thing. And then go through college. I actually bring my 64, my PlayStation 2 to college. End up getting the big title in college for me was Final Fantasy 12. That game blew my mind. I actually got it on my birthday. It came out on my birthday. I got it with birthday money. And, during college, you're not going to have a whole lot of money or even a whole lot of time to play. But I do end up getting Final Fantasy 12. Final Fantasy 12 is underrated. I'm stoked that it's being re-released, okay, for PS4. That's going to be excellent. Not a whole lot happened during college for me. The PlayStation 3 does eventually come out. I'm not super interested in that. Wasn't really into Blu-ray or any of that kind of stuff. But I ended up getting towards the end of my college career, I ended up getting a Wii. So this would be like 2006-ish. Then I ended up getting a Wii, 2006 or 7. I cannot remember exactly. But I ended up getting a Wii, and I ended up getting Brawl, Smash Bros. That's the main reason why I got a Wii, was for Brawl. I also ended up getting Radiant Dawn and a few other games. I'm not a huge Wii fan, okay? I really am not. I did get Twilight Princess on GameCube, and I played it on my Wii, the backwards compatible, with the memory card and the controller. So I did play that. Twilight Princess was excellent. It still is. I have the HD version now for my Wii U. And the Wii is kind of where things start for me, back up again. I started researching older games a little bit, and I had this desire to start seeking it. I actually sold off some of my games. I'm still kicking myself, even though I've replaced a lot of these games. I sold Earthbound. I sold Harvest Moon. I sold Chrono Trigger. I sold Breath of Fire 1, 2, Final Fantasy 2, Final Fantasy 3, Castlevania, Super Mario World, Mario Kart, a bunch of games. But those are like the ones off the top of my head that I just want to kick myself. I really want Harvest Moon again. That's the game that I'm really on the search for right now. All those other games I've replaced. Okay. But the Wii, I start actually growing that collection out pretty good. And then I start wanting to buy some Nintendo games. This is right before the big retro craze. Okay, this is before the big explosion. Okay, where everybody's trying to grab up retro games. Okay, and I start kind of loosely collecting a little bit, and I start watching videos like AVGN to kind of go full circle here, and that's when I kind of picks up around 2010. I start collecting anything and everything. Okay, and my game collection right now, somewhere in the vicinity of 3,500 games, maybe even closer to 4,000 games. I don't know. I'd had to inventory them. And to catch you guys up to speed, this summer, okay, my wife and I, we bought a house, and it has a really, really, really nice basement. We just painted it today, from top to bottom. And tomorrow I'm actually going to be moving into my game room. I'm going to be trying to put my games away, organize them, and get them, the way I want them to be. Okay. And literally, I have from Atari 2600, actually older. I have some old Pong machines, clone Pong machines actually, and I have all the way up to PS4. Probably the most recent game that I purchased for the system, Fallout 4. That's probably the newest game. I don't buy a whole lot of games new. But I do collect. I collect it even during the school year when I'm teaching and when I'm coaching. I still go out and look at least once a week. When I'm off on summer vacation, probably 2-3 times a week, just depending on what's going on with my schedule that particular week or day or whatever. But I've had some epic finds. I try to find stuff on the cheap, not trying to rip anybody off, but I will try to find stuff that I can afford. And I feel like I've done a pretty good job at that. I have some pretty good strategies that I've used over the years that I've developed. And I'll probably do a whole video about just that, like game collecting 101 tips on how to build your collection on the cheap, where to look, where to hunt. I've had a lot of questions about that, where to look for prices, that kind of thing. But gaming, retro gaming, it's in my blood. I cannot get away from it, even if I try. And my hope and desire with this channel is to spread knowledge, to entertain you guys, to inform you guys, and just hopefully you guys just learn something maybe, learn from some of my mistakes, and learn from some of my successes, and just how I do things. My goals for this channel really, guys, are those. And I just want you all to enjoy what I have to say and do with my channel. I will also have from time to time some of my friends interject, do reviews with me, whatever. Okay. And I hope you all enjoy. Please subscribe, comment below if you have anything you want to add, or if you want to kind of share your story, do so. And I'm hoping that as this channel grows, I become more knowledgeable about this stuff and I have better content. Well, happy 4th of July, early 4th of July, and be safe.